Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
Welcome to the broadcast, everyone. You're watching this broadcast, and we are just about to get into the year 2016. What we're doing on this broadcast today is dealing with issues that have mattered and have made a huge difference just in the last couple of weeks. We're keeping these programs current, and that's been, of course, the terrorist attack in San Bernardino, what it means for the fight against ISIS, what is ISIS trying to accomplish. We've got a lot of calls and comments that are going to be coming in on this, but this is a major issue as we get ready for this new year. I'm joined here in our studios today, also for our television audience, and this is important for everybody. Jordan's in studio. Than is also in our D.C. studio. But not only is ISIS not contained, do we have the bites? I know we do. Of the president saying that, you heard that, and then Ash Carter's statement where it's not. I want to play Ash Carter's statement. This is contrast between the president of the United States on this ISIS situation, the president of the United States, and his Secretary of Defense. Listen to what the Secretary of Defense said.
Mr. Secretary, on the 1st of December, before the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Forbes asked General Dunford, quote, "Have we currently contained ISIL?" General Dunford, "We have not contained ISIL." Mr. Secretary, do you agree with General Dunford?
I agree with what General Dunford said, yes.
So if we have not contained ISIL, how are we to believe that we are succeeding against ISIL?
I think that we are building momentum against ISIL.
No containment, building momentum. Jordan, first of all, the direct contradiction for what the president said, and then we're going to get into the situation with the Syrian, with ISIS having passport access, which is going to be scary in a moment. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. So you have this, we've seen this before with the Obama administration. You have officials who I think when they get pressed too much, they are unwilling to go where the president is. So even though they are there to walk the line of the administration, there are certain times when they just feel like they can't do that. I think we're seeing that with the Secretary of Defense, Ash Carter. He is unwilling to just take the administration's line and repeat it when being pressed by these United States senators.
What is, Than, the latest? And we got the visa waiver issue 1 done in the House. Where are we in Washington right now in all this? And what's the reaction, quickly here, what's the reaction to the president saying ISIS is contained, and then the Secretary of Defense saying, no, it's not?
Well, the Secretary didn't want to go along with it because that is a fact now. I mean, it is a fact that ISIS is not contained. See Paris, see San Bernardino, and the Secretary simply wasn't willing to go along with the president's denial of it. I mean, their influence is growing. Certainly their ability to carry out attacks is growing. So I would say territorially they're not contained, and certainly strategically they're not. And Jordan's right. The president might continue to go down that track, but increasingly members of his intelligence team, members of his defense team are not willing to go along with it.
Well, I'll tell you something, folks. The reality is it's a very, very serious situation, only to be complicated by the fact that we're dealing with the refugees from Syria that the president wants to bring into the United States, and ISIS has the passport printing machine from Syria, from one of the towns they took, and are making fake passports. So this is what we're dealing with. We've got to fight back. We want to defeat ISIS. We want to defend America. We got a petition up right now at aclj.org. I encourage you to sign that, aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255, aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. Also understand this, we're in a matching challenge campaign right now at the ACLJ. Any amount you donate to the ACLJ, we're getting a matching gift for. So let me encourage you, those that are watching on television right now, those of you listening on radio, watching us on Facebook or Periscope, support the work of the ACLJ. Simply go to aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
There's growing evidence that the husband-wife terrorist team who unleashed deadly terror in San Bernardino, California, were radical Islamic terrorists with connections to ISIS, the Islamic State. Federal authorities report the wife even pledged her allegiance to ISIS shortly before the attacks. We are at war with ISIS. Weeks ago, ISIS officially called for radical Islamic jihadists in America to attack soft targets to do maximum damage. At the ACLJ, we've been raising the alarm for years. ISIS is not contained, as President Obama asserts. Sign on to our new petition right now. Protect America, defeat and destroy ISIS. We're demanding that President Obama and Congress act now to destroy ISIS. Time is of the essence. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
Hey, welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. And as we get ready for the Christmas holidays, let me tell you, pray for our legal teams around the globe that are working on so many critical issues. Also, again, we're in a matching challenge campaign, so I encourage you to go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. Any amount you donate, we're getting a matching gift for. This is a very special broadcast. We're actually on Facebook, Periscope, TV, radio, all of our medium here. Jordan's in the studio, fans in our studios in Washington, D.C. We already have callers coming in, so I'm going to go right to the phones. Let's go to Linda, who's calling from Mid-Cities, Texas, on line 1. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Jay.
Hey.
I'm glad to talk to you.
Sure.
I just agree with everything you say. I think ISIS is not in control, and I believe that I don't even like to listen to our president anymore, because when I do listen, I hear nothing but the same rhetoric that I've heard for the last 8 years.
Well, you know what it is, and I'm going to go to Jordan on this. The president, we've been saying this, and Dan, I want Dan to comment on this too, but I'll go to Jordan first. You know, we've been saying this for a long time. The president has this narrative. I mean, the world's exploding. Syria's exploding, and he doesn't move from the same narrative he had when he made that speech in Cairo in 2009.
He didn't move when the beheading started by ISIS and these mass beheadings of 20-plus individuals at a time. He didn't change his narrative there. He hasn't changed his narrative after terror attacks in the West, in Paris, and he didn't change his narrative after terror attacks right here in the United States of America. So we've had all these different opportunities for him to change where he has been in the past in his assessment of the threat of radical Islamic terrorism, a phrase he would never use, and the threat of terrorism worldwide, including to Americans. He's had those opportunities, but he's been unwilling to change. He's been just unwavering, really.
Yep.
It's one of those issues where he has just been pounding the same narrative over and over and over again.
Dan, your sense, there is frustration within this administration, clearly. And I think we got to be cognizant of that. I mean, the frustration levels, I think, at an all-time high. But the president says, let me just lay this out for everybody. The president makes a statement and said the day before the Paris attacks that ISIS is contained. Paris attack the next day. The president goes on the next week and says there's no evidence of an imminent threat in the United States. And 3 days later, we have the terrorist attack in San Bernardino, which, by the way, if those facts unfold, are just horrific. I mean, I think we have to be honest, it was a complete failure, a national security intelligence failure. I mean, it was. I mean, I'm not blaming the FBI per se, but we got to make sure they've got the tools to do their job here. And the administration's narrative was, it's a common mixed motive. They kept calling it a mixed motive terrorist attack. And now we know, of course, it was just a straight jihadist terrorist attack. But what's the reaction in Washington right now?
Well, I think the game changer, the real game changer, Jay, was the attack in San Bernardino because, you guys are right. I mean, when the Paris attack happened, the president continued his narrative without any change, and to some extent, he got away with it. I don't mean in the larger community, but I mean inside of Washington, D.C., or inside his own party. But when American soil was attacked, Jay, I think that's why you started seeing some slippage within his administration with the Secretary of Defense and others, because this is America under attack, and the president went on national TV, and for the first time, he did call it terrorism, but then he didn't change his attack. That is a place that I don't think the Secretary of Defense was willing to go. I think that attack was the game changer, but Jay, without a commander-in-chief that changes course, there's only so much that can change.
No, absolutely right. Now, there's an interesting comment coming in, Jordan, on Facebook. Levon on Facebook says, I would like to know if a state can refuse refugees. How would they know when they are coming in? Well, let me tell you the problem. The state of Texas went to court and lost to try to stop the refugees because it's generally a national function of the federal government. So go ahead and explain. I think it's important people explain it, but then let me tell you what the real problem is and why we need this pause that Congress is voting on. Go ahead. So lay out the law.
The normal process is you would apply for status as a refugee. That's different than immigration, so it is a quicker track than going through for economic reasons or because you want a better life, which we see plenty of people that go through that process, a much longer process. The refugee process means you have nowhere else to go, and for specific reasons, whether it's your nationality, your race, your religion, all of those factors come together, and you basically have to prove, you're supposed to have to prove that you have nowhere to go to. You have nowhere to return. There's even rules about where you stop along the way. So if you, for instance, were coming out of Syria and you stopped in Western Europe, then why did you continue traveling? Why didn't you stop in, if you're truly trying to just seek a safety, it's not about economic betterment like immigration is, normal immigration, then why didn't you stop? And so they look at that along the way. But what we see is this is through the federal government, and the administration can direct this as well. And I think we're seeing that now.
Now, let me give you that's the legal, that is the law. So when people are talking about things, let me tell you, that's what the law is. But let me tell you this thing with Syria, and I think this is a problem. So ISIS, according to Homeland Security Investigations Intelligence Report, issued a law enforcement alert last week saying that ISIS has the ability to print legitimate-looking Syrian passports since taking over one of the major cities, which is home to a passport office with boxes of blank passports and a passport printing machine. Now, doesn't that tell you, Than, pause? I mean, they've got the printing machine. This isn't Al-Qaeda. This is operating more like the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, which we say in our book, Rise of ISIS. This is why you would do that.
If there is anyone out there who didn't think before that we needed a pause for people who are either from Syria or the region who have traveled there, this absolutely should change your mind, because those folks, Jay, could be coming to the United States with a Syrian passport printed on a legitimate. It would look legitimate. It is time for a pause, and there's no excuse for anyone to take a different position at this point.
When does that vote up?
Yesterday, the House and the Senate passed a 5-day extension through next Wednesday till December 16th of the spending bill. I am told, Jay, these are negotiations, but I am told the visa waiver language is in that bill. At this point, we're not sure if the refugee language is or not, but by December 16th, they have to vote on the spending bill. That's where the negotiation will take place.
Without the refugee language in there, Jordan, though, it's very limited on impact. I mean, it's a good first start, but the Syrian refugee situation is very serious.
Yeah, that's right. And so if you don't, it's got to be more comprehensive. You take little pieces. Listen, we want victories, and any victories in this Congress is different than what we've been used to. Actually getting something through to the president's desk, signed, authorized, a fundamental, even if he won't change his message, a change in the laws that are on the books.
Right.
But if you don't tackle the refugee issue, we talked about it earlier in the week. I mean, you've got over 200 refugees coming in since the Paris attacks. Only one is a Christian. The rest are all Sunni Muslims. So
say
there's
that
not
again.
even diversity.
I think people need to know the number here.
I think there were 232, and one was a Christian. So there's only one Christian, and that's identified. The rest are all Sunni Muslims. So not even diversity amongst Muslims. And you look at the age numbers. The largest category is males between the ages of 18 and 40.
All right, Sherry's calling from Indianapolis, Indiana. She's on line 2. Hi, Sherry.
Back in the late 70s, Carter had put a ban on Iranians coming in and ordered all kind of students to report, and send them all back and everything. So my question is, for the safety of Americans, why is such a big deal being made of this ban? I mean, why not?
Look, I've said this, I'm glad you called, Sherry, and I'm going to send you our books, both Rise of ISIS and Undemocratic. Look, there's not a constitutional right to immigration, and I'm a big advocate of legal immigration. I think that's what makes America America. But this idea that you have a constitutional right to immigration is that's not legally correct. There is not a constitutional right to immigration. There's not a constitutional right to refugee status. And then you got the whole thing with the UN refugee organizations doing the certification here, which, believe me, after being at Oxford last year, listening to them, listening to discussions about that and participating in dialogue on this, not something you'd rest a lot of confidence in, to say the least. But Jordan, go ahead.
Well, and also that was a nationality-based ban. A lot easier to implement, actually, to say, okay, no specific country, whether it was Iranians, whether in this case, Syrians. It was much more difficult before this war for Syrians to immigrate here because of the way that the country was set up as a country of concern, a country on a watch list. And so that would be a very difficult process. But instead, when you talk about an entire group, as we talked about, there's diversity amongst Muslims. We do need Muslims to help us fight these battles. And especially when we're calling on the Gulf states. Many of you have said that these countries in the region should do more to stop ISIS. I think it's going to be a lot more difficult to get them to help in that conflict if we're saying that we're going to ban them from coming to our country.
Yeah. Paul Lee from Periscope asks, we have to pray for the president and the administration to do the right thing, and we should be praying for our leaders and praying for those in authority. There's no doubt about that. My concern, of course, is, Than, that right now I don't even think the president has on the radar what the right thing might be.
Well, you have to pray for the president, certainly, but you also have to have a change in tactic. And listen, there are a lot of us that are losing faith that he might change his tact before he ends his term. But, Jay, he is trying to bootstrap the next president as well. So we can't just stand by. We also have to make sure we act, because this threat won't be defeated unless there's a change in strategy as well.
All right, James is calling from San Antonio, Texas. You're on the air, James.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to say thank you for you guys. I appreciate it, keeping us informed. And hoping to wake up some of the minds of some of these listeners, because to me it's ridiculous.
That's the job of the show. That's why we do this broadcast every day, James, and I appreciate you saying that. Every day we're on the air to give you the real analysis. No spin, no, not partisan. This is what the law is. This is what the policy is. This is where it should go. That's why we're spending the time to prep as we do for this broadcast and get this information on. Hey, we've got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to take more of your call. James, hang on the line there. I'm going to send you some information that we want to give you as our gift. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255 for that matching challenge. ACLJ.org, the easiest way to support the work of the ACLJ. Back with more in a moment.
There's growing evidence that the husband-wife terrorist team who unleashed deadly terror in San Bernardino, California, were radical Islamic terrorists with connections to ISIS, the Islamic State. Federal authorities report the wife even pledged her allegiance to ISIS shortly before the attacks. We are at war with ISIS. Weeks ago, ISIS officially called for radical Islamic jihadists in America to attack soft targets to do maximum damage. At the ACLJ, we've been raising the alarm for years. ISIS is not contained, as President Obama asserts. Sign on to our new petition right now. Protect America, defeat and destroy ISIS. We're demanding that President Obama and Congress act now to destroy ISIS. Time is of the essence. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. Taking your phone calls. We're glad our television audience is with us. We're on radio, television, Periscope, Facebook. We're hitting all the avenues we can. Let's go to the next call, which would be Lisa, calling from San Bernardino, California. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Jay. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And I just want to let you know I'm a supporter. I sent money. I'll be sending more.
We appreciate that, Lisa. Especially now we're in a matching challenge. Makes a huge difference. But go ahead.
Definitely. A couple of things. Number one, 2 days before the shooting, I actually picked up my weapon, my weapon that I never thought I would ever consider getting. I live very within miles of the shooting. My sister's brother-in-law was there. He was manning the phones. He works for the county, so it came very close to home for me. He did not get injured. He was actually manning the phones for the party, so for the people to be there. Now, as far as the third suspect, what happened? Do we hear from anyone regarding this third?
So let me give you my analysis, and then I'll Jordan work with the Justice Department, so I want to get his too. Here's my analysis on this. You've got a cooperating witness right now that may end up being indicted, but he's been cooperative. Now, they're concerned that the information that he's providing may not be correct. You saw in the news that they're going into a lake, that they think there's been data dumps into the lake with some material. This was a guy that was a neighbor. There's a blood relationship by family marriage, and he was also radicalized. And again, I don't like using that term. These are adults. He accepted a jihadist mentality, allegedly. Now, we don't have evidence that he was directly involved in this act, except he purchased the weapons as a straw man. And Jordan, that violates the law, period, number one. But there's a lot more about this we don't know, and the FBI's got to really dig here. I suspect he's going to get indicted.
Yeah, I mean, they're going through a lot of data. They found, I mean, this is out of a lake, so it's computer hard drives that these terrorists tried to destroy, and the FBI has been able to recover information there. It has information on potential other sites back in 2012. We heard about the idea that possibly that there was a first attack was thwarted back in 2012 because of arrests that were made in Southern California of jihadists planning attacks, that may have scared them off from trying to complete one. Schools were in that mix, other government facilities. Yeah, but they still are having to go through the fog. This was also someone who worked for the government in San Bernardino for the local government and did inspections of government places. So they're trying to figure out what was part of legitimate work, what was part of the terrorist work.
What is your sense, though? And this is something I'm very curious to find out here. Than, is there pressure coming on from Washington right now? And this is something that I think we need to know. Is pressure coming on the FBI to really look at all sources? I mean, I know that James Comey's saying he's going to. I still can't believe they turned that house back over to the tenants, which was the mother who's now on a watch list, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that was an outright mistake. I mean, they shouldn't have done that at this point. I will tell you this. The sense that I'm getting from the Hill, Jay, is that this individual, Enrique Marquez, is probably going to be charged. But I think you're right that they're looking for more information. I mean, I think a couple of pieces of information that everybody should know is Syed Farook asked him to buy those guns because he didn't think he would pass a background check. And then after the shooting, Marquez posted on his Facebook, he said, "I'm very sorry, guys. It was a pleasure." We don't know exactly what that means. He later said that was misunderstood. But I think they are pursuing more information about that before they actually pursue him for charges because they want to investigate that information.
I mean, that's fine that they're doing that. But this guy did post on his Facebook, and he hasn't denied it. Sorry about that, guys. It was a pleasure. And then there was like a smiley face or something after it. I mean, this is a guy that is probably, in my view, there's multiple. They keep saying it was these two. I don't even believe that. First it was she radicalized him. That was all nonsense. So what we're starting to find out is that as you look at the witness situation here, it's really serious.
Well, and we know that they went to foreign funding also. Yes. So it's $28,000+. This would be the typical kind of amount these suicide attackers' families receive in the Middle East. That's where this really goes to. Some of it went to the mother, and she was cashing it out. That would have made sense because if she was going to have to care for the child, but think about the knowledge there that includes then family members, that includes foreign financiers of terrorism. I mean, you're talking way more than 2 or 3 people. You're talking probably more than a dozen people.
Yeah, it's staggering. All right, we're taking your calls at 1-800-684-3110, 800-684-3110. Let's go to Tom, who's watching on Facebook. Hi, Tom.
Hey, how you doing, Jay?
Good.
Enjoy your show.
Thank you.
I ran into it a month ago. I listen to you every day now.
So are you listening to us or watching us or both?
I got you on Facebook.
Great.
So
good to hear.
That's how I picked you up. I'm in South Jersey.
Right.
The question I got, we get attacked, and Obama is going to executive order with guns. The last thing I read the last 2 days, he's going to issue an executive order probably over the weekend.
There's talk about it.
And
I mean, look, it was in his speech. I mean, in his speech, he didn't hesitate. He brought up the terror watch list. People on the terror watch list should not have access to weapons and started talking about that as if that was going to solve any of this, which it doesn't. I mean, first of all, these people, neither Tashfeen Malik or Syed Farook were on a terror watch list. So these Band-Aid fixes, this doesn't fix anything.
Prevented them. That wouldn't have prevented Enrique Marquez from going to and purchasing these and then giving them to a friend. And so ultimately, and the terror watch list with the number of people on it who have not been, no charges have been brought against them. Right. And so there's a constitutional issue there because Second Amendment right, unlike this right, the immigration issue or the refugee issue, the Second Amendment right is a constitutional right. If people are on a watch list but no charges have been brought against them, you can't start stripping them of constitutional rights that they get as Americans.
Yeah, and is there any sense right now, Than, in Washington that the concern, because there has been this concern that something could happen even this weekend, is there any sense?
I think there's significant concern of that. In fact, I think it's more likely than not that he will issue an executive action. I don't know if it'll be this weekend. I think it could be, but I think certainly within the next month he plans to do so. And I would just say this. I think the best pressure point there is presidential candidates, specifically on the side of the aisle that belong to the president, because they're vulnerable to this. Their voters typically don't want it either. You should see Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and the like coming out opposed to this. I don't think you will, but you should.
Will just sent me that, according to The Hill today, the newspaper, the White House is finalizing a new executive action, so Tom's right, that would expand background checks on gun purchases, according to one of President Obama's top aides. I'm sure there will be a lot more than that as this matures. We want to encourage you to stay engaged. Let me try to do a really quick analysis here and get Jordan's comments on this. I think we're reaching a point right now. The polls show that the concern about a terror attack in the United States is at the levels of right after 9/11, maybe even higher, some of them are saying. How does this play politically? I mean, has this become the dominant issue?
Absolutely. I mean, so it's on all these different fronts. I mean, you talk about the Second Amendment issue, it involves terrorism. You talk about immigration, it involves terrorism. You talk about refugees, which is different, an entirely different law than immigration law. Travel, just basic foreign travel, is now become an issue. The passport printing, we haven't fully gotten into
about
this.
that yet.
I mean, ISIS has passport machines because they've taken over governments, cities in Syria and the government buildings. So they've got the passport printing machines, the blank passports, and the U.S. government, the Homeland Security Investigations Intelligence Report submitted to Congress that they can't determine which passports are wrong and which ones are legitimate passports. And so that's the problem when you have an Islamic state, is they take over the entities of a state. That wasn't like Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, that's very different. That's why hit pause. Folks, here's what we're going to do. We're closing the broadcast out. You go to aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255 and support the work of the ACLJ. This is really critical. Go to aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255 and support our ongoing efforts to make a difference. Now, we're in a matching challenge campaign, and what that means is any amount you donate to the ACLJ, we're getting a matching gift for. So aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. Talk to you next week.
There's growing evidence that the husband-wife terrorist team who unleashed deadly terror in San Bernardino, California, were radical Islamic terrorists with connections to ISIS, the Islamic State. Federal authorities report the wife even pledged her allegiance to ISIS shortly before the attacks. We are at war with ISIS. Weeks ago, ISIS officially called for radical Islamic jihadists in America to attack soft targets to do maximum damage. At the ACLJ, we've been raising the alarm for years. ISIS is not contained, as President Obama asserts. Sign on to our new petition right now. Protect America, defeat and destroy ISIS. We're demanding that President Obama and Congress act now to destroy ISIS. Time is of the essence. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.